It is November 1st. It is 12:30. It is No Shave November. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the liberal mooch, the toxic gatekeeper, the uneducated, childlike elitist, the man who makes gaming no fun, the OGGM with another OGGM Adventures. And we're taking another look at this, the pocket edition of the Dark Eye Core Rules from Ulysses, North America, Germany's #1 role-playing game. I said before, it's as if Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, and GURPS had a baby and came up with this amazing game. I mean, the art is good, and it doesn't dominate much of the work. The lore is incredible. The amount of detail on backgrounds and character generation and races and classes and cultures is just mind-boggling. It's like it's Warhammer Fantasy and Pathfinder, and GURPS had a baby. It would be this. But don't take my word for it. Let's go to one of my viewers, a gentleman by the name Haku Hoist, who sent me his review on it, because apparently he took some umbrage with the fact that I said it was chunky. And it is chunky. I mean, but, and I also said that I haven't actually had a chance to go through it yet. So here we go. This is from Haku Hoist 2 days ago. Sorry, but you completely misunderstand how the Dark Eye works. Chunky? Not at all. Yes, you have to invest time into creating your character, but guess what? It's a role-playing game. That by default means that the focus should be on character and his backstory, not how much damage the character can deal in one round. Okay. I know you Americans love Pathfinder and D&D. No, I fucking hate 5th edition D&D. And hey, the fun you play once in a while, but unfortunately both games are completely and 100% focused on combat. Yes, that is true. With almost no options available for other things, especially the terrible 5e rules, which are almost as bad as 4e. 4e rules are fine, 5e rules are fine. It's just how people interpret it. And there are tons of options available in Pathfinder, so yeah. And talking about chunky games, once your character has reached higher level in both D&D as well as Pathfinder, the games get worse. No, it actually gets a little bit easier, though the action economy gets harder, especially in Pathfinder, and worse and more chunky by the second. Keeping track of active buffs alone, for example, is a nightmare. Yes, the character creation might seem intimidating. I guess he's going back to talking about the Dark Eye at first glance just because of the huge number of options, but that is only the character creation, not how the game runs once you've built a character. Besides, experienced TDE players like me build a detailed character within 15 minutes. What about unexperienced TDE characters like me? Speaking of filling in the numbers, the most time-consuming part is actually developing a background story and personality for the character, not fiddling with numbers, and that is also the case of D&D and Pathfinder players, at least if they're interested in extra player. You're right. There is no rules in any of the games for personality. That is up to each individual player to develop the personality of the character as they develop, and it is each individual group decides how much or how little they roleplay. I mean, some of the best role-playing experiences I've had are in Dungeons & Dragons, and some of the worst role-playing experience I've had and the worst experiences I've been in, also Dungeons & Dragons, but I mean, one of the worst, all-time worst role-playing experiences, group experiences, gaming experiences, was in a Forge game run by Kerry Solomon called Numenor, and that was all about character development and background, and it wasn't chunky, and that was a horrible experience. So really, role-playing and how the group work has nothing to do with the rules. A D&D group can be as intense, as role-playing specific, as developed as any other. I mean, fuck, look at Critical Role. I mean, yeah, sure, I bag on it all the time, dude, but all they do is background and roleplay, and they're basically playing D&D, more or less. Actually developing blah blah for the character, not fiddling with numbers. However, running a game of the Dark Eye is very smooth compared to both D&D and Pathfinder, and the rules gives your characters a wide variety of skills for all situations. Combat is just one of the many such things, and others being social interaction with NPCs in the game world. Again, that's individuals, it's not systems. Pathfinder and D&D are totally fine for people who want their game to consist of rolling monsters to death at least 70% of the time, with actual role-playing to be a minor part of the game. Players prefer role-playing aspects to be the main focus, play games like Dark Eye, and then here Here's where he lost me. Or GURPS. He compared this to GURPS in that, this isn't a chunky game. This isn't a complicated game. This isn't a point-heavy min-max game. This is, just like GURPS. As somebody who helped develop and write GURPS and who played GURPS for multiple years and have seen the vast stack of chunk available to GURPS, and the fact that Steve Jackson Games throws new GURPS products against the wall like every 10 days. And to say GURPS is not chunky, GURPS is one of the most chunky games there is. It's the only game I know where by min-maxing and taking advantages and disadvantages, you can build a 0-point character who has all the advantages of a vampire, but enough disadvantages that they end up being a 0-point character. That's the vampire horse from Horse Clans. Because Horse Clans and GURPS allows you to play a horse as a player character, and GURPS, which is a 100-point advantage. And GURPS says that vampire is a 100-point advantage and horse is a 100-point disadvantage. So you can be a vampire horse in GURPS for 0 points and then build all your other characters. So yeah, GURPS is chunky, GURPS is broken, GURPS is all about min-maxing and point allocation and trying to get the best use of points. I mean, what was my big example about GURPS when I was playtesting Right GURPS Super? That the Aquaman character didn't actually know how to swim. In response, Steve Jackson and Lloyd Blankenship's comment was, well, he doesn't have to know how to swim because his default is high enough that he doesn't actually need to know how to swim. At which point, I, as well as experienced scuba divers and Navy SEALs, responded, no, actually, you do know how to swim. You do need to know how to swim. Aquaman knows how to swim. So your Aquaman character should at least have 1 fucking point in swimming. So to compare this to GURPS and say it's not chunky, well, you lost me right there. And to say, well, the big highlight is the role-playing and the interaction, well, that's again, that has nothing to do with a system. Critical Role is, as much as I fucking hate on it, Critical Role is a perfect example of a group of individuals who agreed on the contract that we're going to take the framework of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and use it to tell an incredibly in-depth, multifaceted story. Now, whether you believe the conspiracy that it's scripted or not, like I have said in times, and we know that I bang on Critical Role a lot, but whatever. Take everything away from it and just watch it as an example of a group of people who agreed to the contract that we're going to tell an amazing in-depth role-playing story using 5th edition D&D. And I'm sorry, your argument therefore falls flat, sir, because no system is either gooder or badder about role-playing. Role-playing is all about the group. The group can agree we're going to tell an incredibly in-depth role-playing story over multiple years, or we're just going to do a monster grind. Either way is fine. 5th edition is fine. 5th edition works as 5th edition. Is when you try to fucking make 5th edition something other than it is, Matthew Broman, that it becomes a problem. So, yeah. So what does this game do that's so great about role-playing? Because, I mean, the races, its races are basically 2 pages. It's got the standard elf, dwarf, human, and that's about it. It doesn't even have halflings. Halflings are an offshoot of dwarves, appears to be this game. Then we have the cultures section, and that's almost 100. That's about 40 pages just on the different cultures. So after you pick your race, you pick your culture. Human culture, elf culture, dwarf culture. And that gives you more advantages and disadvantages. Like a human who can pick the very first one I see, Angerstan, gets some free stuff like area knowledge, a language, a script, then a list of common disadvantages and advantages the people from this race might pick. So yeah, some backgrounds give you some bonuses, some like a bonus language or maybe a bonus skill or stuff like that. But and then we have the elf cultures and the dwarf cultures. So it doesn't really have like dark elves or light elves or whatever. Those are all just cultures. So let's go to elf. So, we have the glade elves. And then we have the wood elves. And that's about it. So there's only 2 types of elves. So there's no dwarf. Oh, then we have the Finn elves, who I guess are the dark elves, sort of. Then, of course, we have the dwarves. We have the forge dwarf. We have the diamond dwarf. And we have the hill dwarf, who basically is the halflings. Look at that. I mean, that's not a halfling. I don't know who it is. And then we have the ore dwarf. So we have different cultures. So that's 20 pages. Then you have professions. So this game doesn't have classes. It has professions. You start with one profession. And then, I guess, much like Warhammer Fantasy, you can choose another profession. So we have the mundane professions, and it lists Bard as one of the very first mundane professions. Okay. Obviously, like every other game, very little respect for bards. Courtier, gladiator, guard, healer, hunter, knight, mercenary, merchant, performer, rogue, sailor, spy, tribal warrior. So you could be a tribal warrior as a profession, which is, I would think, would be more of a culture than a profession. Regular old warrior, and then we get to the spell things. So let's just take a look at regular old warrior. So its AP value is 216 adventure points. So I guess to take this profession, you have to spend that many points. It has prerequisites. There's special abilities it gets for choosing a warrior. There's combat techniques you can choose from to start as a warrior. There's bonus starting skills. Then you get a list of suggested and advantages and disadvantages. And advantages and disadvantages in this game seem to work a lot like GURPS. Then we have the magic professions. Now this is what I like. I like this, that each, instead of the magic types just being archetypes of a class, each is a separate class. So we have Spellweaver, we have Wild Runner, we have Cat Witch, we have Raven Witch, we have Toad Witch. I would play this game just to play a Toad Witch and then throw toads at people. We have Black Mage, we have the Grey Mage, we have the Guildless Mage, so I guess there's a guild. Then we have so you can also be guildless, so that's just somebody who's just learned it on the streets type wizard. We have a White Mage and the White Mage, so I like that. And then what I like even more is they don't have clerics. They have blessed, and each god has their own blessed. So the blessed of god A would get completely different stuff than the blessed of god B, so they're separate professions. So we have blessed of Baron, blessed of Hessendel, blessed of Perrine, blessed of Flax, blessed of Parios, and blessed of Rhonda. And those are our classes. So we've got the general everyday classes, which covers, your normal D&D stuff. We have your mage professions, which are split to each type of specific wizard. And then we have your blessed one, your cleric professions, which are divided by each god. It's like each god would have their own separate profession. You wouldn't just be cleric. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, so, and then we have advantage and disadvantage. So that section took up 20 pages. So we're on advantage and disadvantage. We're very familiar with how disadvantages cost. Each hero can spend a maximum 80 AP for advantages. And then, let's see, it doesn't say how many, if there's a limit to disadvantage. I suppose you can't get more than 80 points of disadvantages if you can only spend 80 points on advantages. So you take 80 points of disads to get your 80 points of advans for free. Typical GURPS type thinking. And then we have some advantages like socially adaptable, susceptible. Oh, it looks like a disadvantage. Pragmatic, resistance to poison, and it has ranks. So you could buy resistance to poison 1, resistance to poison 2, similar to like spell casting in GURPS. Very much seems that some stuff was taken from Hero GURPS type thing. Decreased karma points, frenzy. So the disadvantages take up about another 40, 50, 60, 70, 20 pages. It looks like. And then we get to the description of all the skills. So, you pick your skills, and then here's everything it could do, the checks, what the failed checks mean. So it goes into what each and everybody's skills does. So I have been told time and time again that even though the role-playing game I designed sucks, the skill system I came up with was one of the best skill systems people have ever seen. And this reminds me a lot of my skill system, where every skill is listed as a separate skill. It lists what you can and can't do with it. You can list what tools it needs, lists the tables of, each skill has its own table. Okay, this is what you need to do this. So I like that. And then that takes up another, so 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120. So 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 pages of skills before we get to the combat section, which also has its own things going on in it. I still haven't found the equipment section. Your tables for criticals, table for bots, special rules for range combat, special combat feats you can do, combat special abilities. I don't know if you have to buy those with your... Yeah, it looks like you have to buy those. Then the magic section, which is huge, and each magic looks like it's divided by the very specific profession. Like here's the tradition of the Church of Rhonda and all the stuff they get. So, and again, I can't... Where is the equipment section? I still haven't found it. I mean, here's a skill section. Tools. Oh, here we go. Finally found the equipment section. It's on page 364. So between combat and equipment, we're looking at 100, almost 200 pages of information just on combat and spells. So yes, this is a almost 500 page book. So definitely chunky, but it is the entire player's handbook, an entire monster system, it looks like it's got a monster manual in here. It's obviously got some stuff on magic items in here too. So yeah, it's would I play this if offered? I don't know. Probably. I like a lot of the ideas in it. Would I run it? No. Would I steal ideas from it? Definitely, if I could find other people who agreed on these ideas, but probably not. Yeah, I mean, I live in, a Dungeons and Dragons town. It's a one-horse town where we have 3 stores that don't really support gaming, and the few people that you can find just want to play D&D. Experimenting in games is difficult, but there's definitely ideas I like in this. Now, advantage points, disadvantage points, GURPS-y, Champions-y, Heroes-y stuff. But it's the same as feats. I never really liked feats either, and I'm a fan of skills, but I think just too many skills is also just gets, in Pathfinder, I had a character with like a dozen plus 20 skills, some of them ranked at like 14, 15, 22, and I was like, this is ridiculous. As much as you can say about 4th edition, at least the skill system was very simple. Okay, +1 per level. That's it. Can't get more complicated than that. You start with a 3. When you level, it goes up to 4. Everything else that wasn't 3 goes up to 2. I like that system. So, I will give this game, on a scale of natural 1, 10, 20, artwork, 15. Layout, 11. Lore, 20. Ease of play, according to the other guy, it's very easy to play once you get a character going. I mean, it is only using D20s and D6, so that's second to the most easy you can get, other than just straight 6-siders. Ability to make sense of and go through it and easily understand what the game is about, I give it a 7. All in all, I'm going to give this game, for my second read through, and it feels like this is something I have to read 2 or 3 times just to get a handle on how the cultures and the backgrounds and the skills and the professions all interact, and can I start as one profession and switch like I could in Warhammer Fantasy, and why was it so hard to find the equipment section? Yes, I have negative things to say about it because that's my shtick. I say negative things about games. Yeah, I'm the grumpy GM. I'm not the happy-go-lucky GM. If you want that, you should go to the other channel. I'm the grumpy GM. All in all, Germany's #1 selling role-playing game, just for the amount of information, the amount of lore, the amount of great ideas. I mean, the cleric idea alone is just like, how come I never fucking thought of that? I'm going to give it an 18. So there you go. Is it something you should add to your collection? Maybe. I think so. I think there's enough stuff in here that you could take and go and say, this might work in D&D with the white crowd. This might work in other D20 type class level bell curve systems if the right crowd is willing to experiment. As I know somebody who likes to take apart Dungeons and Dragons and try and make it into different systems, I would highly recommend that instead you check this game out, Mr. Bromond. All right, I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming. If you appreciate this content and want to see more, comment down below. Or if you have an opinion that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about and I need to be schooled, like our friend Mr. Haiku Hoist did, comment down below, because I would not have taken a second look at this as much as I did if he hadn't commented. Kerps, compared to Kerps, and say it's easy? No, I'm sorry. Comment down below. If you appreciate this content and want to see more, maybe subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. If I hit 500 subs by New Year's Eve, I'm going to do something crazy. It is No Shave November, so I will not be shaving for the entire month in honor of cancer, because I think that's how I got started, right? And as somebody who has cancer victims in their family and is highly likely genetically to acquire cancer. In fact, I'm fucking lucky I haven't got it yet. So no shave November. From now to the end of November, I will not be shaving much. I mean, I'll shave this here and probably this because it bothers my nose. So probably you're just going to keep this and maybe this, but the rest is going to go because it just looks dumb. To support cancer and of course to support COVID victims and of course to support the other charities that I empower, like Primetime Sports Camp. So if you want to join me in supporting those, maybe take a moment to send some money through my PayPal. I don't know what I'm talking about. I have talked for 20 minutes about absolutely nothing. I should probably shut the fuck up. Support me, V8. I will talk to you losers later. Happy November.